Jimmy's mine. Not from the top, make it drop.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be working on my personal vehicle. It's a 1997 Ford F350, equipped with a 7.3-liter Power Stroke and a 5-speed transmission. In this first episode, we're just going to be working on an oil leak, like every 7.3 has. If you have one that doesn't have a leak, you're pretty lucky. This one's had an oil pan leak on the dipstick flange, and now I have a leak coming from the top oil supply line, or rails. I have a leaking plug in the rear, so I got to replace that. And we're going to be doing some front brakes today and greasing some bearings.
Darren has made that shit.
First, we're going to remove the tire and then get this out of the way. This is a Toyo MT 385/70/16 tire. Equivalates to about 38.5 by 12.5. Either way, it's very large, so we're going to put it in the back of the garage and get it out of the way. So next, we're going to remove the wheel adapter here. It's an 8x6.5 to 8x170 Super Duty lug pattern. It's just the wheels that I run now are a newer style, and I wanted to run them, so I bought adapters. Same deal, just gotta bust off 8 lug nuts, and then we'll get back to you. Alright, so first things first, before we did remove the tire, we checked the hub itself and the ball joints just by shaking the tire side to side and putting a metal flat bar underneath and lifting up the tire to see how much play there was in the ball joints. But that all looked good, so this should just be a pretty easy maintenance job, replacing the brakes, caliper, pads, rotors, and getting it all back together. So first things first is we're going to pinch off the brake line. I have considered maybe purchasing some new ones as the coating for the actual brake line is peeling off. These are the original brakes, but something to look forward to in the future. Doing a short video on that. But so we're just going to pinch off where the sheathing's broken off. This is just going to help when we go to bleed the brakes later on. I don't know if you want to pause it now. You can just. There we go. Alright, so next we're going to go ahead and remove the actual locking hub itself. This is just involved with, I believe it's 6, I'll say the T20 bolts. So they are. So if you just want to pause it. Alright, so next we've got to knock this off. Sometimes these get stuck on. So we're just going to remove this hub here and then set it aside on this cardboard layout here. This is just how I don't mess anything up and get anything wrong. So next what we're going to do, there's the gear that actually engages the hub. You got to just throw 2 of these screws back in it, and then it should just come right out. So I just removed the hubcap, not the hubcap, the hub lock. So next what we're going to do is remove the actual hub that engages the 4-wheel drive. So there's a retaining ring here, so we've got to pop this off. It's best to use picks just to kind of get underneath, and then once you get a decent amount underneath, it will come right up. There we go. So once you get underneath of it, you just got to work it out. I usually like to keep the 90 behind it and then just spin the clip right out. We'll set this aside. So what I've been doing here is just laying out all the parts as I take them out, so that way reassembly is effortless. I find it easy just to grab 2 of the hub switch screws and just feed them back in. This makes removing this part just a little bit easier. Just like that. So here's the actual hub switch. We're going to lay this here. I'm going to leave these in here for reinstalling purposes. It'll make it easier. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove the there's a retaining ring here for the hub's wheel bearing. So we're just going to go ahead and grab our hub socket, which is set behind me here, and I just use a large breaker wrench, ratcheting breaker bar. Just gives me enough leverage just to pull it off. I do like to line everything up, and then these forks just have to go inside the indentions on the ring. Once you find it, it goes pretty smooth. Just like so. Next will be the wheel bearing itself. But before we go any further, this will be a good time to remove the caliper and getting it off the rotor so the whole hub assembly can come off. Here we go. So next, this is actually, like I said, this is a 97 model truck. That was a two-wheel drive, and at some point before I got it, it was swapped over to four-wheel drive. But I did the lift kit in it and all the steering components and track bar and everything. So when I received this truck, when I bought it, it was completely stock front end suspension with a custom track bar that was made for it, which is actually currently on another truck, so it does well. Back to this though, we're just going to remove these retaining clips that hold the caliper to the knuckle. This is a style that you would see in like a 92, 93, and early 94 model axle. They switched over to a bolt-on later in the years. But anyways, we're going to remove these clips and get this caliper out of here.
On the camera, it looks like that pin hit the brake line.
Yeah. So you just knock that out there. But actually, before I go any further, I don't want to knock this loose and pull on this brake line, so I'm actually going to unhook this brake line real quick. It's a 14 millimeter socket. I find it best to use a 6-inch extension, and we'll rock this off real quick. Get some persuasion behind it. Now we can just remove the this retaining pin for the brake pads and remove this caliper. Letting you get a good swing on the back side of it. Some brake fluid everywhere. Just like that. Remove our caliper. I already did the driver's side for the same reason why I'm doing this one. The piston boots are just completely gone, and that one actually locked up while I was 600 miles away from home. Pads were replaced not too long ago, I think within the year, but I bought all new brake parts, so we'll throw these on the shelf or something.
They're pretty dry rotted and shot.
But surprisingly, they're not leaking. The other ones were.
Well, it would only be a matter of time.
Oof.
Yeah.
Gone, dude.
Destroyed. Yikes.
Sheesh.
That would have been bad news.
Alright, so next, now that we have the caliper off, we're going to remove the, there's another retaining ring on this hub, and then we'll be able to pull this whole assembly off. So next, now we have all the retaining rings out, this whole hub should just pull right off like so. This is a good time to look at the spindle, make sure that that is all good. And so far, the removal of the front wheel bearing was pretty easy. Grease actually still looks pretty good. This is about a year since I've actually pulled this all apart again. Last time I was in here though, I ran some new axle seals, or I should say hub seals. Always good to do whenever you have to do the rear wheel bearing or the inner wheel bearing. But it seems like everything's good. I haven't had any ride issues, just some pulling on the right side. And as you can tell, this brake is scored and it's very slightly grooved. You can definitely feel bumps in it, but the next step is to actually flip this over. Now the hub pointing up, and ideally you would like to use a brass-ended hammer to knock the studs out to remove it from the rotor, but in this case I only have a steel hammer. So we'll knock all these studs out, and then we will show you what's the next step. So now that all the studs are pounded through, and I can't hear on my left ear, we're gonna just make sure that we can break it free. The other one I had was seemed to be a little stuck, so this one seems to be moving freely. At this point, you're just gonna lift up the hub away from the rotor, and now you're left with a burnt up old rotor that we can now get rid of and replace with a new one. Alright, so what we have here is all of our new components. We have a new rotor here. Nothing fancy, this is just an O'Reilly special, but better than what we had, so we'll run that in a minute. In this box here we have a brand new caliper. Comes with all the hardware needed, bleeder nipple, two crush washers, and we'll be installing that first, actually after we get the hub back together. And of course it comes with a new retaining pin and clips. That will all be installed. We'll move that out of the way. We'll keep this rotor kind of close by. And in here we have our new brake pads, and then we have the other two old retaining clips for the driver's side that was done previously. So next we're going to flip our hub pointing downwards, and we're going to attach the new brake rotor to the hub. Let's line up our lug nut holes here. Next, we're going to drop our studs back down into the hub and the rotor. We're going to tap them down just to seat them, but then once we get everything put back together and we start torquing things down, these will pull in and fully seat. Right.
Action!
So now that we have everything kind of stubbed back in, we're going to place the hub and rotor back onto the spindle, and then from there we're going to repeat the process of securing everything down. And we're going to add some grease to our outer wheel bearing and get it put back in place.
Are you ready for your exam, Mr. Squidward?
Are you ready?
Are you ready, kids?
Oh, God. I knew it. I'm Chris Hansen. All right.
Bing bong.
I need another glove.
Fuck your life.
So next we're just going to put some more grease and repack this bearing real quick, and then get it put back into the truck.
When I think of you, my heart remembers all the love we've ever had, all the love we've ever had, just me and you. When I think of you, I remember springtime. That was when we fell in love. That was when we fell in love. Just me and you. When I think of you, 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 think of you.
Alright, so we got everything put back together, but unfortunately the brake line's leaking right where I pinched it. Kinda had a feeling it would happen, but I should have probably pinched it on the coating to prevent that, but no need to say that these weren't in not good shape. So we're just going to replace them, and that'll be one less thing that I need to worry about. But everything else is put back together. So next we're going to actually just change gears real quick. We're going to clean up our tools and focus on the leaks that I was speaking about earlier. And you'll see all that in the next episode, so stay tuned.